Here we go. Good morning and good evening to everybody. Thank you very much for being here. Today we are going to present Argiano that will show 4 different labels on the US market in particular way with a focus on New York with our professionals. Thank you very much, Riccardo, for your time and to be here, and welcome.
Grazie, thank you very much, and it's just a pleasure to be here. Thank you for the opportunity. A lot of well-known faces. Unfortunately, as I was saying, it's just a pity that we cannot travel, but thanks to the technology and thanks for your help, we hope to be able to reach as much people as possible. So this is the whole idea behind it. And what I would like to do is to quickly introduce the estates. I'm going to show a video that is probably the best tool to know exactly where we are. So Raffaele, I ask you just a favor. If I talk too much, just stop me, because I don't want to be.
It's easier for me. And how can you explain better Argiano? There is nobody. So let's go ahead.
Thank you very much. Okay, so I'm going to share the screen and show you a video. Raffaele, I cannot share the screen. I don't know if you have the chance for that.
Okay, if I receive any communication, I will happy to allow that. So far, no, I don't see that.
I think, Riccardo, you can send the video to Raffaele and he plays it, a link or not?
Yes, I sent it. Just a little. Anyway, so Raffaele, I don't know if you have the video to show. In the meantime, otherwise we can just talk.
No, Riccardo, because I was sure that you were able. More live on Facebook, no. Q&A, polling. Let's figure out in 5 minutes more. I'm trying also in meantime.
Okay.
I will introduce the winery, and then if you are talking, I will figure out if my connection will give me the opportunity to download and to upload for you. So Argiano is, Riccardo, I will a little bit introduce for you, and then I will give you more questions to answer it. Argiano is really an historic winery in Montalcino. We are talking about around 400 years ago, when for the first time the Pecci family built the villa and the cellar. We are in 1581 exactly. They are also important in the constitution of the first members of the consortium in 1967, and they were maybe the first 10 wineries in Montalcino. Argiano is also an estate that have a different primates. They were the first one to make a super Tuscan in Montalcino, which is well known, called Solengo, thanks to the great job of Giacomo Takis, one of the best winemakers we never had in Italy. But there is much more to say. There is also to talk a little bit about the new renaissance of Argiano, like they used to call and they love to say. Started around 10 years ago with the new acquisition about André Esteves, and that brought a lot of quality and lots of new job to do in the winery, such as the parcellation, thanks to the work of Pedro Parra and the agronomist Francesco Monari, the internal one. They were able to identify 6 different crew of Sangiovese, and in 2015 they went out with Vigna del Solo, an expression of pure Sangiovese, which we found it to be the best expression of Montalcino in 2016. There is something more that I will be happy if Riccardo wants to say us, giving us more details about it, and trying to explore a little bit the history of Argiano before to move into the tasting of the 4 labels.
Thank you, Raffaele. Thank you for the introduction. So you have summarized all the major points. I will add something, and of course, if there are questions, it will be a pleasure to answer. So to connect with the history of the estates, everything started more than 2,000 years ago when we used to have a temple dedicated to the Romanic god Janus, a god with two faces, one looking to the past, one looking to the future. And it was called Ara Jani. So Ara is the altar. And from that, the language changed to Vulgar and then to Italian. And the name changed from Ara Jani to Argiano. And it has been one of the most important estates in the south of Montalcino because, as you said, it was owned by Pecci family, one of the noble families for the Republic of Siena. And in the past, Argiano used to be much bigger than how it is right now. The history arrived also in the last century when we have been one of the 25 founders of the Consorzio del Brunello in 1967. And we have created the Super Tuscan Solengo that you are going to taste. And also in the last 10 years after Andrea Esteves bought the estates, Bernardino Sani joined as a CEO and winemaker, and Francesco Monari started to work on the micro-mapping terroirs. We have worked so hard to understand what we have under our feet. So we wanted to understand the quality of the soil, all the characteristics of the different areas. And Argiano lays on a single parcel estate. We don't have vineyards in other areas of Montalcino or Tuscany. Everything is there. So consider that from the north part of Montalcino to the south part, it takes about 5-6 minutes with the tractor to let you know how compressed it is. And this is a good aspect when we talk about harvest, when we talk about moving from the different vineyards. Since we are in the southwest of Montalcino, our climate is very mitigated by the Tyrrhenian Sea influence. So if we can summarize, we have the Maremma climate with the Chianti Classico soils. We have a lot of clay with limestone that comes from about 30 million years ago. The galestro, the schist, is very deep in the soil. And then we have more alluvial soils, gravel, sands, round stones. So it's a beautiful mix from where we have identified 6 micro-terroirs that we are experimenting. And so far we have one single vineyard, one cru, which, as you said, is the Brunello Vigna del Suolo. We have started in 2015 with that wine, and it is our diamonds, the best expression of the terroir that comes from the oldest vineyards planted in 1965, and comes from a soil extremely rich in limestone. In Argiano, our production goes from the Rosso di Montalcino, light soils, drinkability, very, very gastronomic wine, to the Brunello di Montalcino, that of course is our flagship. And then we produce a little part of Riserva, not every year. Vigna del Suolo also is just a little vineyard and very few thousand bottles produced. And then we have the NC, which is a Bordeaux blend with some Sangiovese, and the Solengo, which is the older brother, so the Super Tuscan. And this is the family of Argiano, plus some olive oils, plus some honey, because we are organic farming, no use of pesticides or fertilizers. So we want to highlight the most beautiful characteristic of Montalcino, which is diversity. We are in one single place, and we want to highlight the identity. Thanks to 3 major elements: the terroir, the winery style, and the vintage. So these 3 characteristics make the wine that we produce in Argiano. And we could talk for hours about micro-mapping, organic farming, sustainability, and wines, but of course, we want to keep it compressed. So this is what we do at Argiano, a very young team. We are a group of people that we are maximum 41 years old. So quite young, energetic, with international experience. And this is what we do. So also in the States, we are imported by Lux Wines. And in New York, we are distributed by Empire. So another detail on the distribution side. So Raffaele, I don't know if I say too much or not enough, but
no,
this was
absolutely,
the introduction.
it's perfect. I think they are all interested in and not annoyed by. So thank you very much. Let's start tasting also wine, so we can compare what you are saying in our glass. I put my line that I think is the same that you taught, more or less, starting the tasting with Brunello di Montalcino 16. Are you agree with me?
They kind of wanted to taste almost in price escalation, not on the tasting profile, because the non-confounded, you know, it's very, very, let's call it by the glass kind of product. But we go to the Brunello right now. Let's taste the Brunello together, guys. Argiano is always, you know, consistent. They are always precise. I've been already in the last 2 years. I've been already 2-3 times in the estate, visiting Riccardo and Bernardino Sani, and the wine are so precise because there is an important work behind it. They are precise in cellar. They are absolutely proud of what they are doing in the last years. There are the perfect condition to age the wines. There are great containers, great oak in cellar. Also, if we can spoiler something, there are something I never seen so far about a great big company in Austria, should be right, Riccardo, making a new form of cask. So it's a big cask around 10 hectoliters of I don't know if we can say it.
Yeah, it's not Austrian, it's French, it's Taranceau. So
do you have Taranceau, but there is also something of Stockinger? I'm wrong?
Just a little bit, but of course a lot of them are experimental. We always want to try different kinds of woods.
So no, yes, we can say Taranceau, of course. And there are different, how do you say, form and shape of the containers. The egg one is
containers of different shape. Huh? Interesting. So what are you gonna do? Cubes?
Maybe.
Oval, yeah.
Yeah, oval and egg shape is something that we are experimenting.
Oh, wood.
In wood and also in natural concrete.
Yeah. Some concrete, yeah.
Yeah.
The wine we are tasting is quite vibrant. You can feel it right now. They need more time in bottle, of course, to soften. But what gives the difference between the wine that we are tasting together is it's really the personality. There is a lot of character that reminds the orange skin, which is exactly what Sangiovese brought. Did you feel it?
In the beginning, as soon as I opened the bottle, it was like
orange skin, a lot. Yes, and then I think it's well played with a lot of wet earth. So terra bagnata, a little bit of dried flowers too. It's an essential wine. It's everything there, and it will show up and keep growing in the glass with some aeration. Riccardo, can you tell us a little bit more about this wine? So the philosophy that there is behind.
Sure. So first, starting in the vineyard, the Brunello comes mostly from the high concentration soil where we have a lot of marl, a lot of limestone and clay. Is where we have kind of the poorest soil, where the vines have to struggle. They have to send the roots very deep in the soil. So without using any fertilization, we kind of force them, and we don't want to spoil them. So they have to get the nutrition by themselves. and it's the yield is usually quite low. But the idea behind the Brunello is that we want to highlight the personality of the area. So we try to make quite short macerations. Of course, the grape has to be harvested not just based on the vineyard, but based on the micro-terroir, so on the soil type. So we bring to the States, to the cellar, only the grape with the right maturation status. And the vinification is quite light. The maceration lasts for about 20 to 25 days maximum, because we are in the southwest, in the warmest part of Montalcino, where we have the structure, we have the sugars. So we have to be kind of soft when we do the extractions. Otherwise, we might have some extra heavy tannins and body. So the idea behind it is that we want to have a traditional Brunello with the elegance, mostly than the body and the structure. And then the wine stays for about 26 to 30 months in the big oak barrels. We try to not keep it for too long. And of course, we talk about large oak barrels from 10 to 50 hectoliters. And then a long time in the bottle. Before we put in the bottle, we try to keep the wine in the concrete, so we avoid any kind of filtration. But really, the idea behind that is to highlight the elegance of the wine itself, the tradition, the identity. So that is our touch. Not too heavy in color, not too heavy in tannins, but this is what we believe that Sangiovese from Argiano should taste like.
Cool. Thank you very much, Riccardo. I have a question for the professional. Do you know already, of course, Argiano, and how can you sell the Brunello, the vintage one, let's say? I don't like to say the first one or the basic one, the vintage one. So in comparison also with other brand, of a historic brand.
So maybe you go first, Wilson. From store to restaurant, at least we have both ideas.
What was the question again? I'm sorry.
Wilson, I was asking, how do you sell the Argiano, I don't want to say the basic one, so the vintage one, this classic Brunello, against in comparison with the other brand, the historic brand of Montalcino, such as maybe big names of like Banfi or Frescobaldi?
Well, first of all, Argiano is a big name here. So when you say that to compare with a big name, it's tough, because for us it's big here in the store.
It's because we give a lot of allocation to the States, a lot of allocation.
A lot.
Yeah. I would say that it's a wine that is up there. Like I can't compare it with another wine because it can compete with any other big brands. Like I agree with you. You said that the wine might need a little more time, but I think that the wine's still showing pretty well, even though that it's been open for a little while. But the wine can stand up to any other brands, in my opinion.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Wilson.
Thank you.
So let's move a little bit now in the next Brunello, which is Vigna del Suolo. I don't know if you knew already, the first vintage was the 2015 for Vigna del Suolo, and was already an excellent wine. I think they took only 1 year to make let's say almost the perfection in the bottle, because Vigna del Suolo was the most exciting wine we had in our tasting during the en premiere of 2016 Brunello in October. Can you tell us something more about it, Riccardo?
Yes. So at the beginning, the vineyards where we produce this wine, so the Vigna del Suolo, it was supposed to be removed and replanted, but the agronomist, he tried to stop that. He tried to preserve, because to him it was one of the biggest treasures of Argiano. Muscle selection, very old vines, many vines were missing from the vineyard, and the vineyard itself is 4.4 hectares, where the production is very limited. And Francesco really understood the potential of this, where we always had the same characteristics from the grapes, a lot of complexity, a lot of minerality. And this is the combination of two major things. The roots, they are very deep in the soil, so the age of the vines, and the high quality of the soil, where we have really a lot of limestone. From the 2000 until the 2013, we have produced another wine there. It was called Suolo. So it was a Brunello that was declassified to IGT because it was a modern way to produce a wine with only Sangiovese in a kind of a non-traditional way. With a new property and with the vision of Bernardino, we decided that from the oldest vineyard, from the best vineyard, we had to produce a Brunello. So the best wine must be a Brunello to us. So we have started in 2015 with only 3,400 bottles produced. And then we have the 2016 with 5,200 bottles. So of course the selection is very strict. We just want to have the best. And the major characteristic is that it's very floral. The mandarin zest is there. The minerality is almost salty on the palate. And this is the best characteristics to us because we have complexity, we have longevity. This is a wine that you can forget in your cellar for a long time, or if matched with some food you can enjoy when it's still young. Of course, it's not easy to produce, but it's the interpretation of the terroir and of the vintage. So this is the Vigna del Suolo to us.
Thanks for your words, Riccardo. What I can say, I found it really exciting wines. One of the best expression I never tasted in Montalcino. There is personality, there is a little bit of austerity, and there is a lot of freshness, which you can really say it's a good freshness. You know what I mean? It's something that can give you only the good plants, the good vineyards, the good exposition. We never need to forget that the old vineyards, it's really hard to manage, but can give you the best wines, of course, because they know how to interpret the different vintages. If there is a dry season, they are able always to be opened and don't close themselves. Keep making the maturation of polyphenolic compounds. If there is a lot of rain, they know how to defend themselves and produce a good grapes. So you can really feel it in the tasting that this wine has something more to express. Congratulations.
Grazie mille.
Buono.
There is some question more on Vigna del Suolo. Do you already know everybody the label, the wine?
Riccardo, I've been checking on beverage media and stuff. Is this sort of replacing, because it's not a reserva, it's basically a single vineyard just designated to be producing this wine. You guys gonna make a reserva out of this? Is a test, or this stays like it is?
Thank you, Leo. It is not a test, it's actually what we want to have, because we believe that the major character must be the Sangiovese and the vineyard. So to us, there is no reason to produce a Riserva from this vineyard, because we want the expression of the Sangiovese without much influence from the oak. We also produce a Riserva that comes from old vineyards and old vines, but it's something different. For Vigna del Suolo, we want to highlight the freshness, and we don't have to produce it as a Riserva.
And will you guys make it every year? Is 2017 going to be a Vigna del Suolo, or it only gets made in?
You know, this is a very nice question. Right this morning, we had a tasting with the whole team, and we were tasting Brunello 2017. together with the Vigna del Suolo 2017. This vintage has been not easy, quite hard, very dry, very hot. So the production of Vigna del Suolo is very, very, very small. And we have to decide if we want to have it in the market in the future, next year, or not. It's not an easy question, but from the tasting, the quality was really there. So it was easy to recognize the Vigna del Suolo. Of course, it's still very early. So we might decide at the very end to not produce it as Vigna del Suolo. But so far, we had nice results.
So I would ask on the Vigna del Suolo, the difference is it's obviously a single vineyard, so I got that part. What's the barrique difference on this? The treatment? Is the maceration different? Because the wines are very, I mean, is it all terroir, or is there stylistic things that are happening in the winery as well?
Of course, the major difference is that this comes from very old vines, the oldest that we have. The soil type, I'm not able to show you the map, but the soil type is very different. We have this kind of white chalk, white limestone deep in the soil that acts really like a rock. The cultivation is the same as in the other vineyards. So all manual harvest, we try to cultivate by giving responsibilities to our colleagues who work in the vineyards. So everybody has a little portion of the vineyard, so they know the vines really well, like in a very small winery. And also when we do the harvest, we do another selection for the grapes, of course, just to keep the best. And we do the fermentation in natural concrete. They don't have any vitrification, any glass inside. So we avoid the risk of having reduction during the vinification. And when the wine is ready for the aging, we use special barrels made for us from Garbellotto, which is a blend of French and Slavonian oak, and they are from 10 to 15 hectoliters each. And then again, we don't filter the wine, we put in the bottle, and then we try to keep it in the bottle as long as possible. So it's almost the same as the Brunello. We have some extra detail to pay attention to.
So on these old vines, how low are the yields per hectare?
With the 2015, we reach about 16 quintals per hectare, which is nothing. For our Brunello, we are at about 55, so still low, but because the plants, they produce small bunches, yeah. So it's ridiculously low. That's why in the past it was more convenient to remove that vineyard, to replant the new one, to have more production, but it's a treasure.
What would the yields be on the other Brunello?
Sorry?
What's your average yield for the other wines?
For the Brunello, between 55 and 60 quintals per hectare.
Right, so,
and yeah, Rosso a little bit higher, but we stay quite low. Of course, we have to select a lot. That is the key for quality.
So how many bottles roughly is Vigna del Suolo, production-wise?
You can read exactly the bottle number and how many bottles you have from the bottle. 2016 was 5,260 bottles.
What's now the estate, the total, everything together?
Everything together is about 300,000 bottles.
Okay.
Yeah.
Which I guess Brunello is the core business. Like.
Brunello is about 100,000, NC 120,000. Then we have 60,000 on the Rosso di Montalcino and very few thousand on the Solengo and Vigna del Suolo.
Raffaele, will NC be the next and we can revisit all of them, or what you guys?
Yes, no, there are no questions from our guests, so we can keep tasting wines. Nothing. It's I would like to stay a little bit more on this wine, but okay, I have the bottle.
We can go back. We can go back to it.
We can debate later, of course.
Because it's good
now
if
the NC 2018. I tasted this wine personally some times ago, and I think they exactly made what they needed to do in 2018 vintage. The 2018, it's a kind of a Mediterranean vintage. There was maybe a lots of rain too, and sometimes in Montalcino they don't trust too much in this vintage, but I think there is so much character and personality that the people with a great history, they know exactly how to make wines in that kind of vintages. So the NC, it means non-confunditur, and there is Riccardo that can say something more, of course, about it.
Thank you. Yes, NC is the baby for our estates. Non confunditur used to be the motto of the previous family who used to own Argiano, and literally means to not be confused, to not be mistaken. The wine was born as a little brother of the Solengo, and it's a blend of Cabernet Sauvignon, about 50%, and 25 each of Merlot and Sangiovese. And this comes from soils where we don't have too much clay, of course, because mostly the Cabernet Sauvignon doesn't really like the clay soils. The idea behind that is to have an medium entry-level wine, easy to drink. Of course, has more international profile, so is less vertical than the Rosso di Montalcino or the Brunello, but is easy to match, is very gastronomic wine. And in this case, it's all aged for about 6 months in the used barriques. NC is a wine that gave us a big challenge. The challenge was to increase the quality without increasing the costs of production. Of course, we talk about a specific price point where the wine, as Leo said earlier, goes really well as by the glass wine. So of course we had to work on the harvest time, we had to work on the agronomical part of the business, and in the cellar we had to maintain a lot of cleanness on the nose. So we don't want to have any disturbance from external factors. And the goal was that, to maintain the cost and increase the quality. So we think that we have reached that after a few years of production. And NC is a wine that you open, you drink it at the barbecue, in a wine bar. We do not want to have too much complexity. We want the drinkability and the juicy. And also with the Sangiovese, the freshness that is a particular factor from Tuscany, from Italy.
I'm so sorry.
Oh,
so
good.
I was saying, you know, I think you didn't have too much pressure about it. You were able to wait a little bit more, the maturation, and is exactly what you needed to do. It's so precise, pure, also deep in the direction of the blue fruit. It reminds me a little bit Mirtilli, if you can help me, guys, with the blueberries, absolutely, and also violets, lavender, this kind of character. It's smooth, it's well done. There is a little bit of spiciness that give more intensity and construction, building, you know, the right drink. I like it a lot personally. And can you tell us again, please, Riccardo, the blend of this wine, in particular way, the 2018?
Is 50% Cabernet Sauvignon, 25 Merlot, 25 Sangiovese.
Okay. What do you think, guys, about this wine? I think the portion are exactly what they needed to do. The percentage is well combined, and there is the right austerity.
It's a decent contender for the wines by the glass category. I think the approachability, I think the nose, I think the fruitfulness, the way it ends, and the price point, they all come together pretty much.
I believe it's like a business card. It's the way to entry and to say, you know what, this is Argiano. So you get a taste. And if it starts at this price point, because this is in a bottle that you can find on a shelf from 1999 and likely above, I think people saying, you know, there is a lot of work behind it, and the quality price ratio, it's very, very good.
Trust on it.
Yeah, and you say something very important, if I can, about the style, the drinkability, because of course, before to drink a wine like Vigna del Suolo, you need some experience. You need to know what is Montalcino, what is the Sangiovese. It's not a wine for everybody. And we have to think about also the new generations, that they approach the wines without having a strong knowledge about the wines made in Tuscany or in Piedmont or in Eden Valley, wherever in the world. So you have to start from a comfortable profile for the wine until you reach something more complex, something also more difficult to taste.
I say about the selling point, I think also can back me up. The market wouldn't it be better if on the label you find some way to explain what kind of wine it is? Because like everything else is a Brunello, Misolento, people know. If you find this on the shelf, how people picks it, they don't know what it is. You know, it's an agitated Toscan, but we know it.
It's a bit obscure.
The general market won't know it.
We are going to have the grades on it and some description, because you mentioned a very good point. Sometimes it's hard to explain or just to read and choose. So we are working on it.
It makes easier the job of people in the shop and the market.
If you
sell it, it will sell by itself too sometimes, you know.
As a small suggestion, it will definitely help every time you make an improvement on your labels. Allow the customer to have confidence in your approach and your investment in being biodynamic or organic or so forth. People tend to really feel a little more engaged and more confident about purchases.
Yes, yes, and that is a very discussed point. But yeah, we have decided that our clients, and this is maybe not very commercial points of view, our clients, our consumers, they have to buy Argiano because they believe in the estates, because they know the quality. If they investigate, they will find out that we are even more than just organic. We have the sustainability. We only use what we have produced in our vineyards. We have reached the plastic-free. We have reached the carbon neutrality. So a lot about the environment, but being organic is not the final goal. It's just a tool to reach higher quality. I know that commercially it works better to have the stamp of organic wine, but it has been discussed a lot, this, and we think that naturally all the wines should be wines who are not organic maybe should have something written on the label, not the opposite, but it's a long way.
Yeah, I agree. I completely agree, to be honest, Riccardo. It's an easier way, maybe. There are, you know, some entities that who certified this category. So sometimes it's not really the essence of what you need to communicate, but sometimes helps. There is some much more behind Argiano. Like you said, they reach out also the plastic-free in 2019. I think they were the first one to be in Montalcino, and only a few in Italy and around Europe, of course. Talking about wines again and coming back, the NC was really a nice business card. Like we said, the wine is perfectly done, what you were able to make it in 2018. Moving now in the big brother, we are talking and showing the Solengo 2018. It was a big pleasure, to be honest, to taste really soon. It was an exciting tasting. And I think the Solengo 2018 will be maybe an eternal wine. You can keep there for 25 years, 30 years.
Well, it's a very Bordeaux wine, if we can say that, thanks to the vintage. 2018 was not dry at all. We had a lot of rain, and for international grapes, for Bordeaux grapes like Cabernet, Petit Verdot, and Merlot, we had some very nice results. Not too much concentration. And the Solengo, it is literal means is a slang word used in Montalcino to describe the old male lonely wild boar. So it's an animal that goes away from the pack. And this is the Solengo. It was born in Montalcino, but was really against the tradition of Montalcino. Something produced from vineyard next to Brunello Vineyards, but with a different perspective, different idea behind it. So we have the Cabernet Sauvignon is 50%, 30% of Petit Verdot, 15 is Merlot, and just 5% is Sangiovese. All vinificated separately, aged separately for about 16 to 18 months in barriques, and then we do the final blend. And the Solengo is exactly this. It's the expression of strength, of concentration, but together with the elegance. So the tension, the high voltage of the wine must be there. It's a wine that already represents the tradition for Argiano, where we are mostly focused on the Sangiovese, but we have this side production, this brother that is the Solengo. And with that, of course, it's still extremely young right now. 2018 is not yet in the market, but the idea is to understand the potential for a wine like this. That will need some time to have smoother tannins and less aggressive acidity, but very, I would like to say, very Saint-Estèphe style, this specific vintage.
Yes, I think
Can you repeat the blend? It was 50 Cabernet, 30
30 Petit Verdot. So we use a lot of Petit Verdot. This is one of the signature. 15 is Merlot and 5 is Sangiovese from Brunello Vineyards.
You just want to add in the Petit Verdot.
Riccardo, which one is the which was the first vintage of that wine, the Solengo?
1995, the very first one.
Thank you.
And it originated based on wanting to change the Montalcino structure, just wanted to do something added ordinary and NGT that it didn't resemble Montalcino. That's the motivation behind the wine originally.
Sorry, could you repeat again? I didn't hear you.
The very first vintage, the motivation of the wine was trying to break the rules of Montalcino and trying to do an NGT that was nothing like it, but it was like the Bordeaux style. That was the motivation. Did I get it correct?
Well, the history behind is that the previous owner, the Countess Marone Cinzano, she was a big friend of the Marquise Incisa della Rocchetta from Tenuta San Guido. And he introduced her, his winemaker consultant, Giacomo Takis, who arrived to Argiano and say, okay, you're a Brunello producer, an historic winery. You know that, to me, you have the potential to make something else beside the Brunello. And she said, yes, let's be provocative in that way. And of course, many other wineries, they say, oh, you are crazy at Argiano. Why are you doing the wine that is not Sangiovese? Montalcino is Sangiovese. We knew that, but we wanted to show the potential also for something else. And this doesn't take any vineyard from Brunello, because Brunello vineyards are blocked. So you cannot produce anything else. You have to buy rights from other wineries, basically. And so we have lands, we still have mostly forest, and we have some vineyard with Cabernet, Petit Verdot, and Merlot.
So it was a provocative project back then, I imagine.
Yeah, exactly that.
Cool.
Riccardo, do you made a change to the bottle this year for this vintage?
Yes, we did. We have kind of renewed the packaging, moving back to the old style of label, heavier bottle. Before it was higher, it was longer. Well, it's not heavier, the weight is the same, but it was longer. But Solengo is a more muscular wine, so we wanted to make some change.
Great.
What's the production on the Solengo now?
This is 25,000 bottles for this vintage.
Was it the same before, or you increased the production because the new ownership changed?
No, the production, consider that goes between, the minimum was 16,000 bottles and the maximum ever produced was 32,000 bottles. So usually is around that. It depends by the vintage.
Riccardo, I have a question. So NC and Solengo, they are brothers, but they are very close to each other. So you harvest the grapes on the same area? Or
Yes.
they are two different? Oh, exactly.
Biggest difference is the age of the vines. Again, the soils type that we understood in the 2014 with the micro mapping study. So now we know better why we have more concentration or different quality based on the plots. And also we select more in the Solengo to have like more concentrated bunches. So of course is more attention for the Solengo.
But they're coming from the same plots?
Same vineyards and same plots, yes.
Okay.
Consider
Because there is
that
a line between them.
We kind of know already from which plots we take grapes for the Solengo and for NC. So we got the experience about that.
Petit Verdot is like nice. You give like a nice fresh touch, minty, like something like that. Is very, very interesting. I'm a love of. I'm not an international grape guy in Italy, but I love Petit Verdot very much, and in this blend is like perfect.
Thank you very much.
No problem.
Petit Verdot can be very aggressive.
Could be.
Yes. And I think honestly the Petit Verdot for too many years was just a synonymous of power, but it's not like that, because actually they need to dilute, if you can give me the possibility to use these terms, the power of Cabernet Sauvignon and Merlot. So it gives much more elegance and smoothness on the palate. Using so much, it's not easy to manage, but they know how to do, absolutely.
Petit Verdot is a wild horse. You need to know how to control it. Otherwise, you make a big mess.
Buono.
Well, it's a grape that in Italy, it's especially from the Bulgari line going south, it's a grape that is being used also to give color and structure, because it's a wine that brings, all the American back in the days, they want everything to sort of be inky, very, very strong color to show that. So this is a perfect wine to also compare not only with Bordeaux, because Bordeaux doesn't use this much Petit Verdot, but to confront it with Napa Valley. Napa Valley, it's Cabernet, Petit Verdot, Merlot, heavy. They don't use a lot of Sangiovese, but I think it's a wine that will do very well for customers in restaurants and in the store that drink a lot of California. Say, try this one from Montalcino, because it's not what you expect from Montalcino.
Still has a very signature vein of tannins that's Tuscany known for, which I like that. I have to say it's the signature. It's a little.
Riccardo, I have a question. Honestly,
Yes.
talking about the last three vintages, that they were really, really exciting in Italy and Tuscany in particular, 18, 19, 20. The 18, it seems a little bit more rained one, so like we used to say, not really dry and not really easy. What do you think about the potential of the three vintages? Now we are talking about Bordeaux blend, so let's say according to Bordeaux blend now.
I believe that they are very different. In very few words, 2018 will be ready earlier compared to the two other vintages. 2019, kind of similar to the 2015, was beautiful but hot, so it will need much more time. 2020, probably the most complex of the three vintages, where the maturation was stable, a lot of diurnal temperature difference. I think that in the very long term, 2020 will be better than 19 and then 18.
Okay.
Similar,
Thank you very much for your
sorry. Similar to 16 or more similar to 15?
2020 similar
Yeah.
to 2016, and 2019 similar to 2015.
15, okay.
Do you have an idea? Do you remember a little bit the pH?
No, Raffaele,
No,
this
exactly,
is
not exactly, but how about, you know, the lower? Do you have an
look,
idea?
let me try to get this information from the technical sheets, because this was more for the cellar master. This was a difficult question to me.
Because no, it's only one, and now because we are going to close our conversation, our webinar, I'm a little bit interested. I will put, you know, my hand on the fire that I felt in love with 2018. I know there is something that really hard will be repeatable, that you can see again going back. Now there is a global warming, there is changing in temperature. The 2018 was really fresh. Really fresh, it means a lot of rain in the first part, and the September really, really nice. There was a little bit 2-3 rain in the end of September, so it divides the producers. There are someone who harvested before and someone who harvested later of that of that rain. But you know, it's a little bit a challenge, and I am one of the youngest wine critics, so we will see.
We will see. I think that we will find a lot of terroir expressions all around Tuscany in Italy with the 2018. Probably because since it wasn't that hot, we will be able to appreciate the wines when they're still quite young. I think that this is something that will give us a big smile when we will drink the 2018.
Okay.
Riccardo, which one of the four is your favorite?
My favorite, if I have to choose one bottle for the rest of my life, I will go with Vigna del Suolo.
That's too easy. That's too easy.
I know, but
but it's true, Montalcino. I wanted to ask a question to David. David, you run international wine list. Which one do you think you could work more with? You know, we're not just talking Italian. We're catering to all customers. What's your opinion?
Yeah, hello guys. You know, I've been working actually with Argiano for many years. When I started learning about wine, it was always Argiano was one of them when it comes to Tuscany and Italy. Obviously, in Montalcino, you know, the bigger names. I started buying wines from the late 90s and the early 2000s. They were current vintages, really. But stylistically, the wines, especially Solengo, you know, was jammy, it was big. It was Robert Parker style, you know, if I can say that. Stylistically, they're much more linear now. They're much more focused. You know, the tannic structure is pressed and the acidity is live. Solengo has, first of all, I love the packaging. It's a little more like a Aubryon in a way, without obviously the specific bottle, but I love the capsule, this part at least, you know, it's like very Aubryon, Aubryon. I think it doesn't need an introduction. For me, at least, I worked in 4 Italian restaurants for 14 years, and we always done really well with, NC had it for about 5 years as By the Glass, vintage of 4 or 5 or 6 or 7, easy, at that price range, you know. But Solengo is always, you know, closer to Tinanello when it was not absurdly overexpensive.
Yeah.
What Altasso, you know, is impossible now. There used to be around the same price range, to be honest. But Solengo, this style particularly to me is just stellar, you know, and compared to Left Bank Bordeaux, first of all, like San Steve, I think it was a great comparison. But also, you know, Napa, for sure. So really, really well done. Complimenti.
Grazie mille. Thank you very much.
Cheers.
It's a great compliment to us because we have worked so hard on that, to work on the verticality without trying to be really focused on the wines and not to just do something over structure and too heavy sometimes. Drinkability is a very important factor for all the wines.
And if you guys go to the vineyard, Riccardo is very, very generous in opening a bottle that like 25, 30 years old, just to.
Please don't say that. Please don't say that.
I was lucky enough and impressed. You know, he did it blind, and he said, you know, this is a bottle from the early days of Solengo, and it's still holding up pretty well. You know?
Riccardo, ci prenotiamo.
Perfetto.
I already wrote it down that Solengo, the first vintage was 95, and you know we are affording the worst pandemic world ever. So we need to wait until it's finished, and then there is something to taste incredible altogether.
Okay, you will come. I will open a 1995 Solengo. You can come with just a bottle of Salon will be enough, and we will celebrate.
We'll do that. We'll do that. Real sure. Take a bottle of Salon from the store. Let's go read it.
I think we talked really everything of what is changing also in Argiano. You can understand, guys, it's there is so much going on and a lot behind of the estate. There is first of all the history, and we know really well about Argiano and what's happening there. Talking about 400 years history and then even more, like Riccardo explained it us. But what is really important is what's happening in the last 10 years. So it's not only about Brunello and Brunello Riserva. They are making also differences between the crew. Vigna del Suolo, I can tell you again, it's I can put my face. It's the most exciting expression we had in 2016. Close to Giodo, it's similar in the style, and really close to Ciro Pacenti. They were the three best wines we found it on top of 150 wines tasted. It's quite a lot. So I'm really proud to have Riccardo today here, to have the honor to taste this wine, and also to say, you know, I really can understand that the quality is insane. There is the potential to age, but there is also what is changing. So the beautiful to drink now, this wine. There is the energy, the purity of the fruit, the style, the drinkability. If there are the last question, I will be happy to give you some more time.
The last question is, Riccardo, we are waiting for you in New York because we want to drink it together.
I can't wait for that. I need to take a plane and come to New York. Absolutely.
Yeah, Federico's going to wait for you at JFK on the scooter for you.
Well, that's perfect. More than enough.
Wilson, you good? Any question, Fabrizio?
No, we're good. Thank you.
Grazie, Raffaele. Grazie, Riccardo.
Grazie a voi.
Thank you, guys.
Salute. If you want to send us a link to that video.
Thank you.
There are many links to the video. We'll watch it later.
Perfect. There are no questions anymore from our guest, which followed us. And I would like to thank you again, Riccardo, for the time and also the opportunity to present on the US market in New York this wine. Solengo 2010, when it will be released, Riccardo?
It should arrive in the States around middle March. So okay. About a month from now.
Really, really close. And how about Vigna del Suolo, which is really...
Vigna del Suolo actually is already there in, few places, but it's already there. But perfect. I want to thank you, Raffaele. Thank you, everybody. It was a really nice chat and nice conversation about Argiano, about the world of wine. So thank you very much.
Grazie a te, Riccardo. Thank you very much.